Well, welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. This is the voice of the people's champ. That is Jeremy Gillen. We are down one Albert Kanza, Albie Shore. He's in, I don't even remember where, Connecticut, Concord,
Cleveland.
Cleveland. Another one of those cities you never want to visit. But, so you got me as a host, but not just me. It's not; those days are long gone. I'm solo potting it. We have, of course, the TTU Presidente, the man himself, Red Raider expert. It's Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot at all, man. Just, getting ready to close out another work week, getting into full on February, the what is he, Punxsutawney Phil seeing his shadow saying we got 6 more weeks of winter, but it's been 90 degrees here the last couple days. So trying to get the body to adjust to what's going on in the panhandle.
Let me tell you something about that dumb government plant that they call Punxsutawney Phil. Stroll around in his little Pope mobile. That thing is a waste of resources. If the government efficiency team needs to go after anything, it's that waste of space. I want to see the budget for that thing. You throw this huge lavish party. Oh, this year it'll be different. This year he'll be for us, and every year it feels like he's like, nope, more winter for you losers. And yet with that kind of inefficiency, what's the point? What is the point of having the rat? Just leave his ass down in the hole, shut it up, pave over it, and build a Walmart. I don't care. It's a dumb tradition, and Bill Murray said it best. I hate that effing rat. I hate that effing hamster, whatever he said on the Groundhog Day. Good movie. But what doesn't feel like Groundhog Day is Texas Tech basketball right now. Texas Tech basketball had a beautiful victory at home on Tuesday evening against Baylor Bears. We'll start off with that, recapping that before we get into probably what will become the make or break game for Texas Tech's chances at a Big 12 shot at the at least a shot at the Big 12 title or a share of the Big 12 title, depending on how things shake out. But Joe, first up on the chopping block, Baylor Bears, a Scott Drew led team that's kind of been up and down this season, right? They're 14-8, only 6-5 in conference, or at the time 6-4. Excuse me, 6-4. A lot of questions around the Baylor team. Very young. I mean, we kind of talked about it. This Baylor team is a Scott Drew team, so there's a lot there. But atypically young. They do have some important transfers like Jeremy Roach, right? They got people who have seen some ball, but not really in their stellar, they're not having this stellar narrative arc after, post transfer. So Baylor's had a hard time, and they were also without a very important piece as well. But Texas Tech fills up the United Supermarkets Arena. I had the luxury of going, and as soon as tip-off happened, I mean, we're pretty much sitting at 90, I would say about 95% capacity, unless the bowl above the seats above me were empty. I mean, students showed out, alumni, fans showed out, right? Donors showed out. It was really packed environment and worth it. I know that you were pretty busy doing dad stuff, Joe, which is more important. Let's all get that straight. Right. But were you keeping an eye on the game? How'd you measure that? How'd you measure being a dad and a Red Raider fan on the same day?
This is just some of those times where you wish the Wi-Fi in Wolford, Texas was a little bit better. Just like I love my daughter to death. She is, soon to be graduating high school. So, obviously I had to do the dad duties, but you're at a basketball game, it's senior night for the girls playing there, and which turned out great. Friendship won their 9th consecutive district title in the 6A class up here. So that was all great and fun. But yeah, it's kind of hard not wanting to pick up your phone and say, what's the score real quick? Oh, 7-2 or 7-5 or, 12-9, whatever the case may be. I tried to keep it tempered because I knew the reason why I was out there. But man, that crowd looked exceptional. Like for a Tuesday evening game, everybody showed out. And what's crazy about that is I don't remember seeing any lines out there, like, the big congregation of the students, who had been camping for days upon days to, fill the student section like that. This happened on a Tuesday afternoon where they just all came in a big pack. And man, I bet that atmosphere was great. But as far as the game itself, or at least the start of the game, I missed a majority of that just because of where I was at. But just the little updates that I was getting, it's a Baylor team. We talked about it in our last podcast where Tech's coming off of a huge high, Baylor's coming off of a huge high after coming back from 20 plus down to Kansas and actually winning there at home. Like, which team this could be, that team essentially that could you didn't want to come short. Like if you didn't want to have a letdown game after the fact, after you did something so well the previous game. So they started off a little, I guess, from my understanding in the box score and stuff and reading the play-by-play, it was a little flat early on. You got some early dunks there from JT Toppin, and such to get the crowd into it. But overall, I think that, we did what we had to do, protected our home court, and, added in another W to that conference record. And it's looking really nice right now. The best conference record that we've ever had here at Texas Tech.
That's right. So a tough start for the Red Raiders, a slow start. Something that, and I think that the narrative for this game was very much that, right? Coming off of a huge win against Houston, you didn't want to come home and have a flat game or lose, right? It's the worst thing that can happen. And ironically, when we were started the game, I had my eyes firmly on the ticker for Houston and Oklahoma State because at the time being, Oklahoma State was leading Houston. I thought, oh my word, like I hope we both don't have this like Final Four caliber game, and then both of us lose the week after. What would that say about the conference? And in no time, Houston and I blink, and Houston was up like 50, and Oklahoma State hadn't scored forever. So Texas Tech having a very slow start, but JT Toppin making it happen. Like if it ain't happening from out wide, we're just gonna go to the basket, right? Get a dunk or two, and kind of get some momentum going, right? And so atmosphere was great. I will say, side note, the Wi-Fi in Wolfforth was probably still better than the Wi-Fi in the arena because I couldn't. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, Baylor very much kind of felt in hand of this game firmly until they got about 7 minutes down the way for Christian Anderson made that 3-point to tie it up, 12 all. And it was kind of really from that point on that it chanced me. Millen was like, you know what? All right, good. Kerwin Walton was on early, which is a huge win. We've talked about Walton being kind of absent throughout this season. He being on early and on at the end of the Houston game was a huge win for us as well. Elijah Hawkins making a 3 early, in the first. This team found that rhythm really soon, right? It was out of rhythm, but they found that rhythm really soon, and they were really starting to punish Baylor for. And watching Baylor, and I think Baylor fans would agree with this. This offense felt very stagnant most of the game. Felt very, who do we give the ball to? Who are we running this through? And that very much can be kind of a lack of identity in a young team compared with like a veteran, some veteran transfers who themselves maybe weren't, ready to take on that leadership role in that way. But for a while in that first half, it really felt like Baylor couldn't get anything going. Every time they seemed to, because at a certain point, it's 30-21, like 4.5 minutes left. And Baylor's like, okay, we got to turn something on here. They start crawling back, 30-24, and then we get 32-24, and then they try to scoot in closer, but then we from about 4 minutes left, that 4:14 mark, after Roach made the 3, Texas Tech said, all right, I ain't letting scoring more baskets the rest of this half. So for the last 4 minutes, we held them, without a basket. And this is a Baylor team, and I'll come back to this, but this is a Baylor team that does not really bow to good defenses. Baylor has done really well all season at finding a way to get buckets, even when their offense is kind of struggling and feeling a little sluggish. Like they've got guys that can go up and get it. Baylor's DNA has always been that way. So for them to be held to 24 points, the hard point at the end of that was that, we were 32-24. And for also the last 4 minutes, the only thing we could manage was one more jumper from Darian Williams. But we kept them from crawling back, right? So 34-24 at the half, right? I was feeling ecstatic, right? I felt that everybody was playing really well off of each other. There was I don't remember if it happened in the first half or right at the beginning of the second, but JT Toppin steps on somebody's ankle onto the basket and he goes down. At the time, it felt like a non-contact injury as somebody in the in the arena, and I thought, oh no, this is over. This is over.
Right.
But he hobbles off into the oh Lord have mercy, my dog with the squeaker. He hobbles off to the locker room and comes out not too much later, and he's just as fine. So, but 34-24 at the half felt like the guys had grabbed that momentum from the Houston game, carried it forward. Right, everybody was making their shots. Our shot percentage was looking a lot more normal for us at the time. But, and I turned to my buddy and I said, "Listen, this is this is great, but Iowa State was up on these guys by 20, and they crawled back. So for me, I said this first couple of minutes out of the half here are going to be extremely important, and important they were because Baylor wasted no time coming out and being aggressive, right? So Elijah gets that first three, and it felt like, okay, you know what, we're still in this. But after that, we foul Robert right on a three. He makes all three of them, right? Jeremy Roach gets Kerwin misses a three. Jeremy Roach makes his layup. McMillan misses a jumper, right? Ojinawuna makes a jumper. Omier makes a layup. We foul Toppin. Toppin fouls Omier. He gets a free throw. So all of a sudden, that like 10-point lead shriveled down into a 3-point lead. And I, again, turned to my buddy and I said, uh-oh. I've seen this before. I have seen this before.
Right.
Critical moment for this team because Baylor, and it felt like Baylor was kind of getting some swagger back. And that was the issue, that Baylor was starting to play a little bit more efficiently on offense. And it's you know why? Because they knew they got a guy like Scott Drew who said, if we keep playing like this, we'll wear them down and we'll win, just like we did against Iowa State. It's a really good case study, right? It's a lot of good body of work to look at. Joe, I mean, and it's hard to say because you don't really get a good view on it, but at this point, is Baylor, I would ask you, like, is Baylor a good enough team to capitalize? Because it's a 3-point game. They've erased the momentum for Texas Tech. If you're sitting looking at this like an analyst, like Texas Tech, what do you got to do here in these kind of scenarios?
Yeah. Baylor is a good enough team. Scott Drew, we all know the kind of pedigree and the kind of athletes that he gets to his university from the high school ranks and from the transfer ranks. Most notably, O'Shea right now, which we could talk about how his performance was, kept kind of Baylor in this game, because you take him out of the equation here altogether, and Tech's running away with this thing by 20 points in the second half at some point in time. But, it's the resiliency in this tech team and how this has a lot to go with how Coach McCaslin coaches this basketball team. He kind of lets them play through it unless it's absolutely necessary for him to actually call a timeout, stop the run, and kind of calm down, stop the bleeding kind of situation. And he lets them play through it. It gets down to that 37-34 mark, and then Darian Williams hits 2 shots in a row, takes your lead back up, to 41 to 34, I believe, 7-point lead there. Baylor is good. There's what they did against Kansas, like I said, coming back from that 20+ hole that they were in and able to do what they did and slow the Jayhawks down. And I mean, that's an incredible feat what they did there. They have the talent in the world there. So I guess if you're looking at it, then you're like, okay, this is a good basketball team. This is what good basketball teams do. They go punch for punch. You throw a haymaker, I throw a haymaker right back at you, and then last man standing kind of deal. I didn't get the expectation that it was a big haymaker. They did hit us with a couple of body shots there, but it just never felt like they were going to go and put us away at any point in that second half. And then we'll touch on, whenever you get to that, when they're close to 1 point, and then Chance McMillan, decides to start his own 3-point contest with himself and hitting it from everywhere and getting the crowd back into this game, pushing that lead to 10 points. And it just kind of never felt like that game was ever lost after those 3 consecutive threes there.
Accurate. I was about to say, you hit it right on the head that this was very much a punt. Like the final score doesn't really do this game justice because Baylor did everything to claw back into this one. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points where the game like expanded, got close, expanded, got close, expanded. And you felt that as a fan. You were like, oh, I can't just put this team away, right? And you want to say that. You want to be like, why can't we just win by 50? We're on pace for whatever. That's not how it works, especially against really good coaches. So reframe, I think if we could all just like reframe our mindset that Tech weathered the storm like 5 separate times of Baylor's, from a genius coaching perspective, like a guy who's won a national champion, like a team that is trying, like literally like we have nothing to lose. We're going to change it up and try to go at them like this. 5 separate times, this Texas Tech team remained resilient, addressed like new attack, addressed new defense, and stayed fruitful. Like it got close. Somebody found a way to get out of it, right? Every time. And what Joe is so favorably alluding to is that kind of around the 10-minute mark, they got again really close. And then Chance McMillan, best 3-point shooter in the nation. I don't know if that's still true or not. It feels like it. It will be. It probably is after this game. 3-pointer, right? And we go down. Baylor tries to get something, nothing. We go back. Elijah Hawkins dumps it off to Chance McMillan. 3-pointer. Okay, Baylor takes it down. Kind of okay, turnover. Oh, dribbling down. Guess what? Elijah Hawkins tosses out to Chance. Doesn't have to think about it. Just tosses out to Chance. And why are they not guarding him? Chance McMillan tosses it up, and then turns around and walks away. Doesn't even care. Doesn't even have to look because he knows it's going in. Absolute monster level stuff. Goes in 9 points like that, just like that. Bing, bing, boom, bop, bop, bop. Just see ya. And even though Baylor got close again, I wasn't even remotely worried because, like you said, after that, first of all, the roof of the place came off. It unhinged. It was one of the loudest that I've ever seen. It's one of the loudest I've ever heard. The United Supermarkets Arena. And I wasn't at the Texas game, blah, blah, of course, that's a lot of vitriol. This was like, nobody could believe it. I saw, the first 3, I was like, heck yeah, good job, Chance. He goes down to get the second. As soon as he grabs that ball and jumps up, my buddy goes, oh, he slams my arm. He goes, oh, he's feeling it. Swoosh. I was like, oh, yeah, he is. Good call, man. That's great. Came around. Hawkins dumps it off, and I grabbed his arm. I was like, there's no way that he's going to do this again. Swish. And the fact that he was already running down the court to the students. It was an absolute Steph Curry. It was an absolute, like, that will live in Texas Tech legend forever, for sure.
I mean, I could only imagine what that sounded like. I saw that whenever I saw it live. I mean, I felt like I was there. Like, this is my reaction in my living room at the time is pretty accurate to what the same reaction and the same decibel level is what I would think the USA was at. So to watch that happen, and like you said, you go back up by 10 at that point in time, and after that happened, I didn't think there was anything left. That was the haymaker, right? That was a haymaker to put them down. They still got up off the canvas itself, but they weren't right after that. They took that huge haymaker, got up from it, and they finished the fight, but they didn't, there wasn't much left.
That's a good way to put it. Do you remember in 2019 when Tariq Owens had that block and then tossed it down and then they ran down the court and then somebody lobbed it to Culver and dunked it? Kind of comparable to that. It was against TCU.
Oh yeah, he had. I don't remember I could see the play happening because it was a blow by on the drive, and then he went and blocked it, and then Culver's running, just coming back in, and then TCU called the timeout right after that.
Yeah, Jamie was like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
It's the same euphoria of like, we are pummeling you right now, and it feels
Right.
so good. It feels so
Right.
good. But you're right. They finished the fight, but they much to fight. They had much fight left in them.
Right.
So Baylor ends up losing this one 59-73 to Texas Tech. Texas Tech moving on to a 7-game win streak here, 9-3 or 9-2 in conference. Maintaining that 13th rank. One more, thank God. Right, because I hate every time we get ranked and we blow it in other sports. But I think big key takeaways from this game, and you can feel free to add any that you feel, Joe. Baylor, first time they've been held to under 60 points all season. That's pretty impressive. Baylor held under 28% on three, one of their lowest of the year, right? Held to under 34% and from the field, one of the lowest from the year. Like, we forced 12 turnovers. The rebounding, there was no rebounding differential. It was the same, 41 for each. But like, just a total domination by McCaslin against this Baylor team. Do you have anything else to add about this game?
Just the scoring between all of your big guys. You have Darian Williams, you have Chance McMillan, Elijah Hawkins. You have all of these key contributors, all kind of doing about the same level of work, but just in different spots in the game. It's like pick your poison, right? JT Toppin has been lingering with some of these foot injuries, and he got kicked out of the Houston game, so he hasn't actually had a solid game of work realistically in about 3 games. But you have your other guys there to pick up the slack. You have Darian Williams to pick up the slack. Chance McMillan has taken it on a personal mission himself to carry this team through whatever it goes through, whatever adversity, whatever challenges that come up. Chance McMillan has taken it as a personal challenge for himself to get Texas Tech through whatever they're going through. And then Elijah Hawkins is starting to play better home and away. It was just the away games where he would show up. Home games, his shooting wasn't quite as consistent as it is when he's away from Lubbock, Texas. All of these pieces are starting to fall into place. And, when Chance McMillan is hitting those threes, Kern Walton is hitting those threes, then that high pick and roll is going to become so much bigger for this offense. You've seen how many, after McMillan hit those 3 threes in a row, how easy it was to get into the box with those alley-oops because they were too worried on the backside, McMillan hanging out there on the 3-point line. So that changes the entire outlook of a defense to where some people are probably going to have to start switching up to zone to play this offense if, Chance McMillan and some of these other guys are consistently hitting from beyond the arc. So it just adds another dynamic to this offense that we hadn't seen consistently earlier in the season. But man, for it to be coming on, midway point through the conference season is, look out.
It's the right time to get hot. And I think you're really keying on to something important that I heard from someone. Chance McMillan is playing at I'm going to bring us through the first round of the NCAA tournament by myself if I have to. Like, I am not going out on the first weekend. He's at that level, right? Just locked in, looking for ways to, serve his team, not himself. Chance McMillan has really become more like the face of this team. Like JT Toppin, obviously NBA level talent, right? But Chance McMillan, in the wake of Toppin's ejection last week, and even having him on the court this week, like McMillan he's performing at such a high level that it makes everybody else around him better. And they say the same thing about Toppin, which is great. If you have 2 of those guys on the court, you're doing excellent, right? So, but to see this team play with such grit and chemistry, for them to feel like they can rely on each other, that's huge. And so it gets you a win, right? It gets you a win at home. Now, rematch. Match number 2. The comeback. Joe was so fortunate to step on with our friends over at Wildcat AZ. What's their full pod name?
Wildcat Country.
Wildcat Country. Yeah, I got stuck on the AZ. I got stuck on the Twitter handle. Yeah, so was so fortunate to go talk to our friends over at Wildcat Country about this upcoming game against Arizona. And all I can say is that this Arizona team is both not the same team and yet the same team that we played, right? Because Arizona only has one loss in conference this season. You guessed it, it's against Texas Tech. And Caleb Love has been a whole different beast. I love that you guys pointed it out that since he missed that last 3 at Texas Tech when he played in Lubbock, he's been a whole different character, right? I'm sure it haunts him, right? And so those ghosts can be a powerful motivating factor when you're not facing the monster in the closet. But when you face the monster in the closet, I don't know, could get a little ugly for you. But Arizona goes on to win at Oklahoma State 92-78, against Colorado 78-63. Against Iowa State, number 3 at the time, 86-75. And we're not so sure if that's such a great win anymore, as Iowa State's starting to kind of do some weird plummeting at stuff. They beat their in-state rivals, Arizona State, in Tempe, 81-72, and they win in Provo against BYU, 85-74. And yeah, they're going to play Texas Tech Red Raiders, 9:30 p.m. Central. Yuck. This Saturday.
Terrible.
Yeah, I cannot stand this after dark garbage. It was nice when we were there. It's not nice now. So, Joe, what are your first thoughts about this game as we kind of circle back around to Arizona, a team that's seemingly got, I mean, you could say they got better, but they were doing excellent before they met Texas Tech. And now they're doing excellent after Texas Tech. So is this the same team, or is this just, are they truly getting better?
I think you could kind of point to the Caleb Love probably would be the biggest one that you could kind of point to and look at statistics previous to Texas Tech and then everything after Texas Tech. His 3-point game has gone up tremendously since the Texas Tech game. I believe in that particular game he went 0 for 5 here in the first meetup. But everything since that, I think he's been shooting over 45%. That miracle 3 that he hit from 60 feet away to send that game into overtime against Iowa State, that was probably like the tip of everything that this is where I'm at. I made it to the summit, time to come down. And he's starting to play like the All-American caliber player that he was when he was at North Carolina before he transferred over to Arizona. So this is Caleb Love kind of coming into his own. And then it's just like we've alluded to, you have good pieces around you and you have one really good player playing really well. And he just, by virtue of how good he's playing, everybody around him gets better as well. So that's what makes this team scary. Where Texas Tech got them in the first time is in the rebounding department, in the plus 16 over them in the rebound department, holding them to 5 second chance points in the game. And that really hurt this team. If it wasn't for Toby Awaka, I think was their biggest piece. I think he had 14 rebounds in that game. If it wasn't for him, this game probably would have been over a whole lot bigger than the 16 points that we ended up winning by. But as I alluded to with the guys last night, whenever I was chatting with them, I don't expect either one of these teams to have the same kind of shooting performances as they did in the first meetup. But both teams kind of shot pretty crappy from the field. We just didn't shoot as crappy as they did. So, we were able to take advantage of some things, and then that rebounding in the second chance points and our depth kind of showed more on paper there. Some of their players that usually get a little bit more out of, like a KJ Lewis, for example, he didn't play well here, so I don't expect that stuff to happen 2 games in a row as much as I would wish it would happen. But yeah, I think this is going to be a different kind of matchup. I think it's still on paper, we're still the better basketball team. But, we're going on the road. We're undefeated on the road in true road test games. So something's got to give there. They're playing well, but, if we slow the game down and take them out of their tempo offense, then everything kind of falls into the line of what Coach McCaslin and company's wanting to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that these are 2 different identities, coaching identities when it comes to basketball, that, Arizona wants to keep you on the run, keep you exhausted, and, But Texas Tech, on the other hand, wants to frustrate you with their pace because it's like, I want to get out and run. And if anybody's like grabbed a dog that's trying to get out the door, they are not having a good time when you're holding them back.
Right.
And so it's frustrating. And I think that's very much the identity of this defense is like, we want to slow down. We want to keep you from taking the easy shots. And something that they did so well in that first matchup was frustrating those shots, right? Keeping them from getting, open look threes or from feeling like that there's a lane even to drive. We did such a good job with that. And then having, the ability with Toppin and all that to have some post presence and get up in there and get a rebound. It was the recipe for success whenever our shooters weren't shooting. But things have changed, and you're right. And now we've got, a lot more confidence in our players to, find a way to get the shooting game going. And I think a lot of this confidence is coming from a really interesting stat of like Texas Tech being 5-0 on the road right now. Texas Tech in my lifetime has never really been the road warriors. It's always been like we're going to defend this house and we'll sneak away a couple on the road and that'll be good enough. But McCaslin's really put an emphasis on finding a way to win when you're not in the comforts of home and when you're not in front of the comforts of your fans. I think that's been such an impressive improvement for this program. And it may be what you need to survive Arizona. What do they call it? The Zona Zoo?
Zona Zoo.
Yeah. Arizona, a blue blood basketball program by all intents and purposes, ran to the buzzsaw against Texas Tech, and they're definitely looking for every reason to get back to it, get us back in there. So Caleb Love, like you said, has been kind of the deciding factor in the past 5 games that they've had, right? So with a high of 27 against Arizona State, he loved that. Or at least, Arizona, he probably was like, I don't care about this school. But, Arizona fans loved it. Who else do we need to really be worried about on the Arizona team the second time around that maybe we didn't even pay attention to the first time?
I think we paid attention to him the first time. It just wasn't quite as big of a splash. But Carter Bryant, I think, is going to be that piece for them if they want to be successful and they want to get a win against us this Saturday. Carter Bryant's probably going to have to play a better game than he did. He played a solid game here, and that's not taking away anything that he did here. He made some bigger shots, some threes there, kept them in the game at certain points before we were able to kind of pull away there late. And, whenever we held them scoreless for the last 5 minutes of the game. But Carter Bryant, I believe, is going to be one of that X factor piece for them to push them over the edge if they want to come out with a win on Saturday.
Yeah, I like that. Somebody who did give us a lot of grief that first game, even though we ended up winning the rebound differential, Toby Awaka. He had 14 rebounds in that first game. Dude's a monster. He's tall, right? And so Toppin had a hard time with him. Everybody really had a hard time with him because, how tall is this guy? He's 6'8". Arms like the length of a bus, man. He just throws them up. Somebody coached that kid well because he just goes up and he keeps it up when he rebounds. He doesn't pull it down. He's up.
Right.
Everybody's gone. He pulls it down. He doesn't come down and then try to, he gets it. It's right there. Right. Especially on the offensive glass. That's so important. Yeah, Toby Walker may be somebody to watch. I do like the question about KJ Lewis, but KJ Lewis, obviously somebody that Texas Tech was looking at recruiting and they decided to go to Arizona. Not a bad pick. But KJ Lewis obviously really underperformed in that game against Texas Tech. And I do wonder, on the collegiate psyche of like, I almost went here.
Right.
But I didn't. And it's pretty cool. These fans are pretty cool. Not saying anything about Arizona. They're probably awesome. But it's like it's interesting when you're choosing between two schools. And I think at the time he was choosing between two schools he didn't think that would be. Because when he went to Arizona, there was no Arizona in the Big 12. So at the time it was like, I'm playing Pac-12 ball.
Right.
And now I got sucked back into it. And it's like, oh, I gotta go to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I gotta play there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win. And then he walked in and saw how cool we were, and then he just kind of, did what he did, which was not much. But yeah, really not a lot. The thing about this game, man, is that, and we talked about it with the Baylor team, the narratives at this point in the season for the Big 12 are always so interesting with teams at the top, right? Because as we're looking at the table, we've got Houston at the top, we've got Arizona, and then Texas. So Houston and Arizona, both 10-1 in conference. Texas Tech, sole place of second or third, however you do numerical delineation. I don't care. I'm gonna say second because they're tied for first. Yeah, 9-2, and then after that it drops off. Right, Iowa State and Kansas are tied 7-4, and then 6-5 is BYU, Baylor, and then 5 and 6 and below 500. The Houston, Arizona, Texas Tech thruple has been such an interesting conversation because I've seen power rankings come up from both accredited journalists and the non-accredited journalists, as we do on Twitter, right? Nobody seems to have a consistent idea of who the best of the three are. I've seen Texas Tech at the top. I've seen Houston at the top. I've seen Arizona at the top. I've seen Texas Tech at the bottom of those three. I've seen Arizona at the bottom of those three. I've seen Houston at the bottom of those three. Is there one that's more right than other? Probably. But I think that this is a really interesting game this weekend. And we talked about it on the last pod. Arizona and Houston are really your only big games you got left. And both suck because you played both already, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no surprise. There's no, oh, what's that team going to be like this year? It's like we played them. We know who they are. We know what they're going to do. So it's going to be even more of a knockdown, drag out Big 12, which is good for basketball, terrible for my cardiovascular system. But Arizona very much wanting to, in Texas Tech fans' minds, you're like, oh, Arizona, they're trash. We wiped the floor with them.
Yeah.
Like, we'll do it again. But in every other Big 12 school, it's like, Arizona's really good. Like, they really schooled us. So we're this weird rubber meets the road yet again. We're playing a team that is like in the hunt of the Big 12 title, as are we. And really, Texas Tech is punching from this place of I am crawling my way up from like this basement position. And so if you get the win against Arizona, then you pull them down to where you are, right? And then it's like, you're staying here with me.
Right.
And then the hope is that you grab a Houston victory, because then if you're a three-way tie, you have the tiebreaker. And so like that's your dream scenario. And of course, all the other Big 12 games you have to win. But that's your dream scenario. So we're getting too far in the weeds now. This is an exciting basketball year compared to how we were feeling in the non-con.
Right.
Did you think we would be here? Think back to that. Think back to those losses. Did you think we would ever be here, buddy?
You remember the preview pod? I was pretty high on this basketball team. I called 24 wins. We're at 18 right now. So I said we were going to lose 2 non-conference games before we started the season. We lost, or I said 1 and we lost 2. And then I said that we would hold serve at home and on the road we'd go 500, and it's actually backwards,
That's right.
So I think the expectation itself, or at least for me personally, just because like I said, I just have this belief in what Coach McCasland has been able to do. And that this is besides Texas Tech. This is every stop that he's made in his coaching journey, from Midwestern all the way up to where he is at now with us. He just wins, man. The resume proves it. And now you have donors and you have players that have bought into your culture. Like if the Houston game wasn't enough to show you that this basketball team could compete when all the chips are stacked against you, about what this team and what this culture is of as how far we could go, as long as they're gelling like they are and playing it one game at a time, I think almost the sky's the limit for this basketball team. And I'll stand on that. I'm still standing on the Final Four prediction. I said that we would be somewhere in the top 3 in the Big 12. We're there now. I've not saying that I've predicted all of this stuff correctly, but this is just what I felt. This is just this team and how he coaches and everything that his process, right? We always talk about processes, we got to stick to our process. And Coach McCasland's process, we've seen games where we've been up on teams and he's in guys' faces for the smallest of things, whenever you could probably brush that under the rug. But what are you actually really teaching these athletes whenever you treat them like that. He's in their face. He's letting them know that this isn't how we do things. This is not our standard.
Yeah.
And the toughest team wins mentality is fully on display right now in this win streak. And I mean, I'm here for it. I can't wait to see Saturday night.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. And McCaslin is a winner. Like he's just you can't debate it. Everywhere he goes, he wins. You know, he's that DJ Khaled song. And a good point about coaching, you know, the good coaches, it was like when we were playing Houston, Kelvin Sampson never looked happy. He never looked. That guy was locked in from you know, even when they got up and got ahead, he was locked in. Like he was like, I'm not satisfied by this performance and by what you guys are doing. And McCaslin's the same way. I remember when Anderson hit a 3 in the second half. It was immediate 3, and I think Baylor ended up taking a timeout. But McCaslin kind of walked over to Anderson and was like, you know, not like excitedly talking to him, but he was like, you know, pointing. I could see he was pointing out like something else. I think he was trying to tell him like, hey, we were trying to run this set. You know, I know you were feeling it, but we didn't need to do that. Like that's maybe not what we needed. We needed to drain some time. And, you know, if he made it, so everybody, hey, let the kid shoot. But if he missed it, then it's like McCaslin, okay, well, what if they get a transition because of how we were positioned? So there's a lot we miss out there. And so when we see McCaslin getting in their face lovingly and yet so sternly, it's really like a good parent. It's like, I know what is best for you. You got to trust me, kid. You got to trust me. And so that's really cool to see. And you're right. People are buying. The team is buying into it. I am so glad we've got a team that is willing to be coached by McCaslin and just buy in and just be like, I trust you. Like, I'm going to do what you say and we'll get the win. And it's proved, man. It's proven. It's proven. So, okay, let's do a little bit of predictions and get out of here. So, since you are the crystal ball, I mean, every time Joe types something in our DMs and he won't show it, he puts a crystal ball behind it every time. Just joking. I got 60
I've been right.
crystal
I've
balls.
been right a handful. I've been right a handful of times.
And he lets us know. But let's hope we get one more good one out of you. Arizona, Texas Tech tip off at 9:30 Central, a witching hour of sorts. I will not be as hammered as I was in Tucson, but I will be awake. So Arizona takes on Texas Tech. The line. Are we familiar with the line yet? Do we have a line? I don't see one.
I don't think so.
Vegas is not interested in calling this yet, and I don't blame them. But ESPN matchup predictor has Arizona winning with like pretty much 68%. Texas Tech 31% chance to win. Joe, with a team that is on the rise and a team that is catching their step again, I don't know. Texas Tech, Arizona. Who you got winning, and what's the score?
I want to stick to my guns with what I predicted last night with the Arizona folk. Texas Tech victory here, 74-70. A little bit higher scoring game than previously as far as, Arizona goes. I don't expect the shooting to be as bad as it was for both sides. And, man, side note, how excited are you to see this Elijah Hawkins, Caleb Love matchup on Saturday?
After watching Elijah Hawkins, LJ Cryer be really exciting, I'm super stoked. Stoked.
Yeah. Give me, like I said, good guys, 74-70. I think our win streak on the road continues. The entire culture, the entire team has bought into this year. And the way Chance McMillan has personally taken a lot of this team on his back, and everybody, by virtue of just being around him, is, playing off of this guy's heart, and it's inspirational to watch, to a degree, because it's like, this is his last go in college and he's going to make the best of it. And looks like he's fully taken advantage of that.
I like it. I was listening to you on the pod Wildcat Country earlier. When it got to predictions, I said, before you said your prediction, I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm going to say 73-68 or something. Like, it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be close. I was like, you copying me, Joe. You copying me. But I do like that. I think that you are past the body of work is starting to catch up. And I know the guys over at Wildcat Country mentioned, Texas Tech really hasn't played a lot of ranked teams. Hey, man, that doesn't always illustrate that, a team. And non-conference compared to now, like, you can't look at a team and go, and that's the same thing people get in trouble with in the tournament, as they look at a team like, oh, who have they really played? And then not pay attention to them. They're on fire, right? That's where Cinderellas come from. So we kind of move past this ability to say, well, if it all kind of falls Texas Tech's way, then we'll win this game, because we have identified that Texas Tech has the DNA, has the players, has the coaching to win games. Texas Tech has the DNA that when their head coach is in the locker room with one of the best players, they're still going to win the game. So that to me is screaming deep run team. And if this is truly real and valid, Texas Tech is going to take it to Arizona and Tucson. It doesn't matter what we're playing. Doesn't matter what we're playing. So I do expect it to be a really close game. I like you. I do think shooting will be a lot better for both teams. And do love that Caleb Love, Elijah Hawkins matchup. I bet Elijah trips up Love at least once in the game. He's just so much smaller, so much lower center of gravity, and such great ball handling. It's poetry. I've said it before. What was that first game score when we shot so bad? It was 80, or not 80, excuse me. It was
54-70.
54-70. Yeah, we're going to keep them on 54. I promise you that, guys. But I do bet we keep them in the 60s. Texas Tech does not like to give up more than 65. It hurts. So, man, I actually think I'm going to go with a really cutesy. I think Texas Tech wins like. Dang, I like your prediction. I can't do that. I'm going to say 71-69, and it's going to be real stressful there at the end. And the guys at Wildcat Country said if free throws, and I cringed, but you know what? Free throws are going to be what sends Texas Tech home on an 8-game winning streak. They're going to come home, and they're going to be feeling it, while Arizona fans will be, why Texas Tech? It's going to be one of those, right?
Right.
There are only 2 losses of the season in conference. It's Texas Tech. They'll love that.
The saguaro cactus, and they're wondering why that's still, you heard, why we still have that here and why it's such a big part. That's still all West Texas at this point in time. Until they beat us, it's ours. Like,
that's right.
You have cactus over there. We have saguaros in the Panhandle.
I've seen the pictures, man. I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ain't no such thing as AI. They're for real.
Yeah.
So we're picking victory for Texas Tech. And here's the main reason. Texas Tech has not given us a reason to think they won't. Right? You start doubting Texas Tech now, you might get left off the bus. Right? Left off the old wagon. The old, what's it called? The bandwagon. Yeah, you might get left off the wagon. Really, no matter how this game goes, Texas Tech is sneaking up. They are kind of sitting more solidly on the 4 line for NCAA tournament bid, starting to sneak up into the conversation of being a 3 seed. How do you feel about that, Joe?
I believe in my prediction, I said that we were a 4 seed is what I had originally said.
Yeah.
So
I believe in my prediction. I said everything that was about to happen.
I mean, a 3 line would be great, just depending on which region you get into, but you probably would see something closer action to the city of Lubbock itself. So maybe that would be a good thing. But I think Tech's actually really positioned themselves really well right now. You win or lose on Saturday, we're still in good shape because Houston and Arizona play later on in the next couple of weeks. So one of those teams has to lose, and our schedule becomes a little bit favorable after Arizona. So you're playing with kind of like house money here. There's a gap between 2 and 4 or 3, or what is it, 7 and 4, and we're 9 and 2, and that's everything behind us. I mean, the schedule is favorable to us. Not saying that, hey, we're okay if we lose this game, because I think we're going to go in there every intention to win this game because of the schedule that we have on our back end to kind of maybe potentially put this Big 12 race away. And for us, So you take care of business against Arizona. Arizona and Houston have to play later on. We get Houston here in Lubbock. So I think you have actually positioned yourself pretty well right now where you stand to make a run at the Big 12, win or lose on Saturday. So a lot to see, a lot to unpack, but I think we're in good shape for sure.
That's right. Last time that Texas Tech was seated at the 3 was 2019, and of course, we made a run to the national championship off that. But a lot of basketball left to play. There's a lot of fun to be had. Another team that had a good day today, you may know, Joe, Texas Tech softball opened up their season playing the Herd. You heard, and
Yes,
they won the one, right? They won the one. So 2-0 victory over Marshall, Nigeria candidate, doing the Nigeria candidate stuff, man. Just absolutely strikeout. Go look at the box sheet yourself, the score sheet yourself. It looks beautiful. Got 2 runs in. Feels a little lackluster, I think, early in the Glasgow era. But there was a lot of opportunity there. I think as we start to hone in further, this team gets used to playing with each other in competitive environments. We'll start to see more bats kind of coming alive. But Nigeria candidate, definitely the star of the show. 2-0 victory to start off their season. And then up next, we've got, I can't remember, Florida?
It's a Nebraska? Is it Nebraska?
Is it Nebraska next?
It's a ranked team, I think. Or that
Mississippi State next. Sorry. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
Nebraska's later. I'm looking way down the sheet. Nebraska's, we're still in the same leadoff classic, but played Marshall. We've got Mississippi State tomorrow, number 25th in the 25th in the nation. Who cares? We're 10th, right? And then Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, Kennesaw State. So a lot of exciting stuff happening right now. Texas Tech. They're talking about baseball, but I don't really care right now because what's his name still pitching coach, and I'm not going to mention it because it doesn't matter. So Texas Tech beats Baylor. Moving on to Arizona, Joe and I both pick a victory for the Red Raiders. Slim but confident victory for the Red Raiders as we stay in the hunt of the Big 12 championship. The Big 12 the Big 12, not turn. Who gives crap about that? The Big 12 title. Joe, anything else you want to say to the people?
Not to be outdone, Maya Davis is catching center field in that softball game where she ran through the wall was pretty nice. That defense travels. That's a point of emphasis that Coach Glasgow has brought whenever he took the job here, is that we were going to play defense, and that definitely showed on that particular play. So really excited to see the rest of this weekend for this Texas Tech softball team. And, just get ready through the rest of the work week. Tomorrow, last day, and then, got to wait a whole full day before Texas Tech plays at 9:30. Thanks a lot,
yeah, you got to wait.
Harrison, douchebag, but whatever. But, you need somebody to blame. So, but
you gotta
all is well. Yeah, all is well over here, man. Just ready for some more basketball, and then, all the other sports that are coming along down the pipeline.
That's right. It's a good week to be a Red Raider. Let's hope that keeps up next week. That's pretty much all we have to say. What am I going to say? Nothing. For Joe, for T2 Presidente, for me, Jeremy, this has been the Tortillas and Eggs podcast. We are part of the 1012 network, the illustrious 1012 network, and we're coming to you live from Lubbock, Texas. So let's go out there. Let's have some fun. Wreck 'em. And as always, stay wrecked, people.